Chapter 40. The End of Me. Dylan whistled sharply and nodded Jesse to follow him. They walked together to the box truck on the opposite side of the parking lot from the woods. Dylan pointed at the vehicle. "If I can get that running, it'll be good for transporting the prisoners." "Why are we doing this? We should be with Sky. Best to let the doc do what he's gotta. This'll keep us busy." Jesse crossed his arms. "Busy don't mean I'll forget what's going on." "No, it don't." Dylan tried to shove any thought of what might be happening to Sky away. If he thought about that, he'd go crazy. And if he were honest with himself, it wouldn't bother him one bit to shoot those three in the head right here and let them rot. Not after what they had done to his woman and boy. They were murderers and rapists. Destroyers. The one admitted it. If they were going to live by the gun, then they shouldn't be surprised when they died by one. But he knew Tom tried to keep the law, as best he could. Dylan had been helping him do that. Now wasn't the time to be changing, no matter how much he wanted. Dylan trusted that Tom would handle the situation to his satisfaction. Those men would die at some point. If Dylan needed to wait a bit to help Tom, he could do that. The box truck's engine roared to life when Dylan hot-wired it. He climbed into the driver's seat to find Jesse hurriedly rubbing at his tear-stained face with his shirt's long sleeve. "You okay?" Dylan asked Jesse. "I'm worried about her." "Yeah. Me too." Dylan patted the boy on the shoulder. Jesse seemed small sitting in the ample passenger seat, but he was old enough. "I want you to see what happens to men that act like they do. You took what they dished out, and I'm proud of how you did. Now you get the satisfaction of retribution." Jesse's lips thinned as his face hardened. "What are we gonna do?" "We're gonna load them, none too gently, into this truck like the animals they are and take them to town. Then we are gonna gladly watch as the law does its worst to them. They're gonna die." "Good. They wanted my mom to die." Jesse glanced away and back. "What about my dad?" Dylan was careful to keep his face impartial. "What do you want done? Can we bury him?" "We can do whatever you want." Jesse nodded and looked up at Dylan. "He saved me, you know. And Sky too. He pushed the gun so it didn't kill her. That's why Calvin killed him." Dylan raised an eyebrow. "I didn't know that." "It seemed, in the end, Frankie did something right. We'll have a real nice burial for him." Jesse rubbed his eyes again. "I'm sad even though he wasn't. Dylan squeezed Jesse's shoulder. "We always love our parents, even when they don't deserve it. Can't help ourselves. Nothing to feel bad about." Jesse nodded. Dylan and Wade wrestled Calvin and Pete into the back of the truck as Jesse stood guard. If they needed to bash the vile degenerates now and again to get them to cooperate, they weren't overly upset about it. Dylan, Wade, and Jesse stood over Tony. "This the one who wanted you dead?" Wade asked. "Yep." Wade kicked at Tony. "What you plan for this boy?" Tony's gaze slid away. Dylan and Wade dragged him, screeching, through the woods and threw him onto the floor of the truck. They weren't too sure he'd make it back to Colton, but that didn't worry them much. After that, they loaded Gregory and his men into the box truck too. Then they leaned on the bumper of a car facing the medical vehicle and willed the doors to open and everything to be okay. It seemed forever before Paul stepped out. Dylan felt his heart sink, and the blood leave his face. He couldn't live without her. He couldn't. Paul glanced up and smiled. Dylan sighed away all his anxiety. Paul clapped Dylan on the shoulder. "She did real good. There wasn't near the damage I worried about. She's still out. Give her a minute to rest while I patch up these two." Paul indicated Aaron and Kurt, "then I'll take you in to see her." Wade smacked Dylan and Jesse on the back as they all beamed. "Looks like we might all make it home in one piece after all." I'm sure hopin' so, Dylan said. When Paul led them into the trailer, Sky rested easy. In spite of the low lighting, it was clear her color was better, and the blood washed from her face. Dylan eased his way to her side and tenderly took her hand. I remember the first day I saw her. He shot a quick glance at Wade. Walkin' down the sidewalk with that saucy way she has, in those fool-headed heels of hers. I've never cared much for those, but I knew right then, she could wear whatever she wanted. He chuckled as he slowly shook his head. Then the day Sky ran smack right into me, and I moved her out of the way. For the first time, I touched her. A smile curved the edges of his mouth. How had he got so lucky? Dylan's brow knitted. When I saw her on the side of the road, my heart stopped. It stopped, Wade. I wanted her so bad I would have done anything she wanted. And it scared me to death. I knew it'd be the end of me. And I was right. From then to now, I've never wanted to be away from her, not for a day or an hour, even a minute. Every time I am, I'm just counting the seconds to when I'm near her again. I know, little brother, Wade said, I know. I told ya, you got it bad. It ain't easy, bro. It sure ain't. Sky stirred, her hand inching toward her gunshot injury until Jesse stopped her by taking it in his. Hey, Mom. Hey, baby, she said softly, opening her eyes and squeezing his hand. She gave Wade, who stood at her opposite side, a smile before turning her eyes to Dylan. Carefully, he smoothed her hair from her forehead. You're all patched up, darlin'. You ready to go home? I am. Sky's green eyes were brilliant for a minute before turning hard. Did you get them? I did. We did. We got the degenerates all loaded up, ready to take to Tom. Then I'll just wait for the word. Sky knew what he meant. He waited for the day he would play executioner. They are evil, Dylan. The things they said they did. Don't you worry about that. We'll get it all figured out. Sky nodded, putting her full trust in him that they would. Her eyelids drooped, she was still sleepy from the anesthesia. Paul noticed. If everything's ready out there, the best time to transport her is while she's sleeping. Sure thing, Doc, Wade said, we're all ready. All the supplies had been reloaded in a second box truck found at the back of the store. Aaron tried to drive, but given his beaten state had trouble. Paul sent Kelsey over to them. As the timid girl got behind the wheel, Aaron and Kurt exchanged a glance. Paul laughed. Yes, I know she's tiny, but she's a good driver. I have her take turns on that thing. He pointed to the medical trailer that was almost as long as a bus. Kurt leaned forward looking over his brother to see her. How old are you, girl? Kelsey shot him a displeased look. I'm 14, which means nothing now. I've been on my own for a while. So I know how to do things, like drive big trucks. Paul chuckled. I leave you in good hands. On their way out of the superstore's parking lot, Dylan looked back at his now bullet-riddled shiny new black truck and Sky's bright blue Jeep. He grimaced. Being a new truck owner hadn't lasted long. Surely there was a car lot somewhere with another pickup with his name on it. And he'd keep his eye open for another blue Jeep so he'd see Sky's dark hair waving in the wind. In the meantime, he would enjoy hitting every pothole and dip in the road while listening to the thumps, curses, and moans of the rotten men in the back of the truck. As they took the curve overlooking the store, Wade pointed back to the plaza. Shoulda hit up that medical supplies place back there while we were at it. Doc didn't say he was low on anything, did he? Dylan asked. No, he didn't mention nothin'. Let's worry about that another day then. Dylan put the truck in gear and roared up the hill. I'm more than ready to get home.